So this whole summer, when you're reading with your children, when you're doing vocabulary with your children, when you're doing anything with your children, think of I do, we do, you do, and they'll probably be more successful and you'll feel better about it. Okay? So, more resources. One of the wonderful resources online for activities for families is Reading is Fundamental. That's a website, and I gave you the specific login information, because what I found on this website in activities, online activities, is about 20 different activities for reading that you can have your child do. And it's wonderful because it has games on there, and it has computer-generated word lists that you can do with the vocabulary, and it gives you references of different books, and it's just wonderful. It's all done for you already. I like that. That makes life a little bit easier. One of the things that is almost a neglected stepchild in reading or writing or spelling or math is fluency. What does fluency mean? Fluency means the ability to do anything effortlessly, accurately, almost unconsciously. When we get in our car now, we get in, put the key into the ignition, turn it on, and away we go. When you first learned to drive, you opened the door and you thought about whether you could open it or not, sat down, made sure you had your seatbelt in, you looked at all the mirrors at least 3 times, you then put your foot on the brake, consciously put the key in, turned it on, did a few pants, and then put it into reverse, checked all your mirrors again, and then said, I think I can go backwards. And you couldn't talk on your cell phone, and you couldn't have the radio on, and you had to say to all of the kids, I want it to be dead silent here. Well, that's not fluent. What we do now is fluent, right? And the same thing is true with any skill, but the skill of fluency in reading is really a critical one. Being able to read effortlessly, accurately, so it sounds like you're talking, is a good definition of fluency. Some of my students, I say, break their teeth on every word. They literally have to think of all the letters and all the sounds and sound it out and work on it a couple of times and then read the word. And they may have the same word 3 lines down and they seem to have forgotten it. That's disfluent reading. So how can we help our children during the summer to be more fluent? We can practice. And I do, you do, we do applies here as much as it did to reading a book out loud or having them read. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to read the book to your child, and you want to read it with fluency. You want to use intonation. You want to sound surprised when somebody is being surprised. You want to change your voice for the different speakers, for the different characters. You want to speak faster when you're reading a quotation and slower and more dramatically when the words warrant that. You want to be a model for them. And if you're not sure how to do that, then check out some of the books on tape from the library and listen to them and imitate them. Because that's what your children need to hear in order to then try to imitate it themselves. Another thing is rereading books is good. It develops fluency. Remember we talked about independent, instructional, and frustrational levels of reading. If you have your children read the same story, the same book over and over again, they become faster and more fluent with those words. Okay? Another trick which I actually really like, is to have your older children pick a book that their younger sibling would really enjoy listening to. And then have them practice with you so that they can read that book like you read it. You can have them tape record it and rehearse and become very dramatic. And that is often very motivating to the children because they're not doing it for themselves, they're doing it for someone else. So having them read to another sibling, usually a much younger sibling, is really valuable. And again, as we said when we talked about academic vocabulary, even the simplest of children's books have very sophisticated vocabulary in them. So you want to work through it with the older child, make sure they understand it, make sure they can read all the words, and then read it to their children. And another thing that we do at the Culture Center is often when we're teaching something, we teach it, we practice it, I do, we do, and then we ask the children to become the teacher. So just as you read out loud to your children and you ask them questions, when they're practicing to read to a younger sibling, say to them, oh, I want you to pick out 2 words that you're going to talk to your younger sibling with. I want you to pick out and create some questions. Let's do that together. And now you be me, you be the teacher for your younger sibling. When they can do that, you know they've really got the ideas. You know they've internalized this process of how do you read and learn from what you're reading. It's a very good trick. Okay. So, games. Because I like games so much, I've given you actually a number of different games that you can use with your children. I like categories and apples to apples. Different skills. Categories, you give a category and they have to come up with lots of words that fit in that category. Why is this important? When you define a word in school, a well-formed definition has the category the word resides in and the critical attributes. Let's take a word like fluency. Fluency would go into the category of reading and how you read. What are the really important characteristics of fluency? Being able to read effortlessly. In other words, you can read all the words and you don't have to sweat. Accurately. You don't make more than 1 or 2 mistakes. And effortlessly. This is so easy you can pay attention to what you're reading and what it means. Many of our students don't know how to give a good definition. So categories and learning how to do categories is really good. Being able to give an adjective for a noun. Buzzword, here's a definition. What is the word that goes with it? That's easier than here's the word, give me a definition. And being able to describe something. So taboo does describing. And then just a lot more, how to define things, how to play with it. So those are some ideas. And now it's time for questions.